So I just got back yesterday evening. I've been away for a while, and I thought I'd jump on some Tannenberg to see what it was like. I've just wanted to play Tannenberg for a while and I haven't been able to play it. So I got on, and there was only 7 players in the EU server. So what I decided to do was change the US server, and the US server was actually worse with only 4 players. So it got me thinking, why is Tannenberg, with it being the newer game, less popular than Verdun? And I think there's a few reasons for it, and that's what I'm going to go into today. I hope you enjoy. So the first big point for me is weapons handling. Now, if you've played Verdun for a while like I have done, I've been playing it now since, I think, well, it must be around 2015, maybe earlier, maybe just later. And if you've been playing for a while and you've come to Tannenberg, you feel there's quite a noticeable change when using the weapons in Tannenberg compared to Verdun. And if you're new to Tannenberg in general and you're new to WW1 game series, this game will be really difficult as well, and it'd be hard to pick up this sort of the technique in shooting on this game. And I don't know why it is on Tannenberg, but it does seem more difficult. And I think the main difference for me is the way the breathing works. Now on Verdun, you can aim, you breathe straight away, and you shoot, and it's fairly rapid. It can be, some people might even describe it as fairly arcadey because it's quite quick. But in Tannenberg, the breathing and the heaviness of the breathing seems a lot more full on, I think, is the way to describe it. And especially if you're using certain weapons like the Mosin, for example. So when I aim down the sights in that gun, I feel like his breathing, it's like he's like an asthmatic. You know, the gun's shaking all over the place. It's hard to get a good shot off. Now, some weapons, they're not all like this, and I'm not sure if it's to do with... I'm not sure if it's something to do with leveling up your squads and you get better perks with different squads or something. I haven't quite worked that out yet. I haven't played the game enough to really look into it as much, and... so maybe there's something to do with it there, but certainly the weapons handling is much more difficult on Tannenberg. And just to build upon that point as well, the weapons are completely different in Tannenberg, because what you'll find is a lot of weapons you use on this game seem to have hit markers, or seem to give you hit markers. Now I'm not sure if that's because of the distance of the maps possibly, but you definitely get more hit markers on Tannenberg than you do in Verdun. And another big difference with the weapons is, on Verdun you've got more choice, I feel like you've got your bolt actions, you've pistols, of course, but then you've also got your MGs and your sniper rifles. In this game, all you've got is bolt action rifles, pretty much, and you've got pistols as well, and handguns and revolvers and stuff. And I think there's a bit more of a focus on melee sort of weaponry as well on Tannenberg, I suppose. So maybe that sort of fills in the role of the need for MGs and stuff. And also, actually, to be fair, in Tannenberg you've got mounted MGs, but I feel like a lot of people prefer the arcadiness of Verdun in the fact that you can run around with a Lewis gun, you can run around with a BAR, and you can just sort of carve through the trenches using that stuff, but you can't do that on Tannenberg. And the MGs aren't that great on Tannenberg. They're not good enough that you could sit on them all game and really do amazingly well like you could with a Lewis gun, for example, on Verdun. So I feel like that for your more arcadey style players is also a point why they would prefer Verdun. So my next point is map size and objectives. So as you'll notice if you've played Tannenberg, the maps are a lot bigger on average than Verdun, and that is solely down to the way the objectives are. You have to capture small different sectors which are dotted around the map. Now the first issue with this, and probably the biggest issue when it comes to map size, is that sometimes the intensity of the battle isn't always there, and it takes away from the immersion. With Verdun, it always seems intense, and it's not that Tannenberg can't be intense, it's just the way the maps are shaped and the way the objective is. It doesn't necessarily mean you'll always be in the action, and I feel like with Verdun, because it's just back and forth, either you're defending or you're attacking, you've got the intensity constantly, and there's always someone shooting at you or ready to kill you. With Tannenberg, that's not always the case, and it's even more so when you're playing against bots or you're playing in a low player count game, because it's just the way the AI works. It's still not great. It's not terrible, but it's still not great, and the intensity is not always there with Tannenberg, which you can almost guarantee is with Verdun. I think an important sort of sub-point to make alongside what I just talked about there as well is the importance of team-based strategy in Tannenberg, because the way your section moves to take the different points is vital to the game's objective, I feel. I feel like if you've got a really good team on Tannenberg, you'll absolutely dominate the other side. And in fact, if both sides have good teams, then it can make for a really good battle. But it's very rare you get that. So if you're playing as a single player, you're not playing with your friends, you're not playing with teammates, you're going to struggle on Tannenberg. It's not as simple as Verdun, where you can just go on as a single player. You don't have to work with anyone. You don't have to speak to anyone because of the way the objective is. Because the objective in Verdun is just backwards and forwards, either defending or attacking. You don't really have to rely on your team as much because you as a single player can change the course of the whole game. With Tannenberg, your team has got to work together to capture the sectors equally in order to take away their sector points. So that's a massive consideration, and I think they should actually consider that for Isonzo as well. And I think it's put a lot of people off because a lot of people don't play with big groups. You know, a lot of guys come on and girls come onto the game and they just play by themselves, or they just, you know, they don't have the friends, or they don't have the people who play in big groups. So then they need to remember that sometimes it's just people playing on their own. And if they want more team-based strategy on the game, like is seen in Tannenberg, they need to implement more features where people can communicate, or they need to do something where they can sort of push that team-based narrative, because people, especially on console, don't tend to follow it. Now, spawning in Tannenberg is still a major issue for me, and I've talked about it countless times in the review I've made for the game, in the live streams I've done, and pretty much any videos to do with Tannenberg. The problem is with it is you could wipe out a trench. You've done really well. You've been this lone wolf. You've gone in there by yourself. You've killed 6 or 7 enemies, and you've took this trench that could change the whole course of the game. 5 seconds later, those guys all spawn back very close to that trench, and then they kill you. And what you feel like is you've done a hell of a lot for very little reward, and it pisses you right off. And it happens far too often. It happens enough that you notice it and that it starts to piss you off, and I can understand why people dislike it. Now, it was supposedly fixed earlier on when the game came out. There was an update and it was supposedly fixed, and it was improved. The spawning wasn't as bad, but it's still enough to notice it. And I feel like they need to change that, because it's really not good. You shouldn't be able to spawn so close to the trench after dying, because especially in this game mode where, you know, it requires you to run a long way to battle for these small different hill points. And I think the reason they've done it is because they're trying to keep up the intensity of the game due to the map size and stuff, you know, points that I've already gone through. But it doesn't work. It's not a system that works. I think they've got to improve the spawning, definitely. So those were the reasons I think Tannenberg isn't as successful as Verdun. You know, the game isn't bad either. I just want to say this as well. I don't dislike Tannenberg in any way. I don't necessarily think Tannenberg's the worst game out of the two. I don't think there's one that I prefer over the other. But these are just the reasons I think why people would have that sort of thought. But yeah, Tannenberg's still a great game. I still think it's one of the best FPS games on the market for console. I haven't obviously played Enlisted because I'm not an Xbox guy. I'm a PlayStation guy. But you know, at the end of the day, compared to all the shite, overpriced shooters that you get today, I think Tannenberg's still great value for money if you want a more hardcore FPS experience. Thanks for watching, and it'd be good to see your comments below.
Ein Pionier